so it would be illegal for Hasbro to sell a figure like this in many parts of the world. Megatron hasn't had a G1 accurate alt mode for a while now, so that's why a third-party company, Newage, stepped up to fill in that gap. This is the Newage Romulus, and this is the G1 colored version of the figure sent to me by Kauki's Toys. Now, is this figure truly G1 accurate and worth putting in your collection, or does it cut corners to meet modern standards? At first glance, the figure seems great, but some reviewers have had some problems. Well, we'll talk all about that later, but first let's talk about why Hasbro could never make something like this. Making a gun mode Megatron is a legal and logistical nightmare. Would I like the Studio Series 86 Megatron to be a pew-pew? Yes, but that's not gonna happen. There are some pretty strict safety laws for when it comes to toy firearms. Generally, you need something like bright colors or an orange tip, and it varies from place to place, and some places even completely ban them. Meaning, if Hasbro were to make a Studio Series 86 that turns into a firearm, they wouldn't be able to sell it in certain areas. Some people would just not be able to buy the figure. That's why we won't get a truly G1 accurate Megatron figure ever. The closest thing would be a Takara import or a third-party figure like this. So I hope that puts the alt mode debate to rest. And also, I'm probably going to be going over the alt mode really fast in this video as not to risk demonetization. The box it comes in really resembles the Studio Series, and this is the EX version of the figure, which is closer to the original G1 toy colors, which is pretty cool. The metallic silver paint is really nice, but I did end up scratching it when trying to use a tool to take this part out to transform the figure. In addition to that, we do have some extra bits of red, as well as some really nice decals, which these don't really look like they're stickers, and I'm not sure if some of these are dry rub. If anyone knows more about that, leave a comment down below. So far it seems to be a pretty good looking and accurate figure with a nice deco to it. His blocky and simple design is emulated perfectly into this figure. You might be wondering about how it scales well with other figures, and we'll take a look at that later in the video, as well as comparing him to the Siege Megatron. Right away, his iconic G1 head is replicated perfectly. That is definitely Megatron. The head is a very different color like the original G1 toy. The chest has its simple and clean blocky design with no Decepticon insignia because this is a third-party figure. Now what we do have here on the EX version specifically is the chest design over here, which is also on the original G1 figure, and I think that's pretty cool. Coming over to the arms, they are in a pretty accurate shape, but there's not really a whole lot to say there. Maybe this area is less blocky than it should be. The hands do fall off really easily, which can be a pain when posing and transforming the figure. When you extend out the arm, I don't really like the gap underneath here, and it does feel kind of empty when you do an elbow bend over here, but those are mainly just nitpicks. The fact that I'm just nitpicking about this figure shows how good it really is. What is cool though are the original G1 toy decals over here, and you can take a pretty good look at that. Coming further down to his abdomen area, we have red and black over here instead of this entire area being gray like in the animation. In the animation, he has red on the side. Further down, we have some nice decals over here on both sides of the figure, and this area is a gray color as opposed to all this being one color. He does have skirt flaps which can extend out for the articulation. Coming further down the figure, the legs do look pretty nice. However, I will say I do not like the triggers being shown over here for the alt mode. That is something that does kind of bother me. But for the rest of the legs, I always loved how the legs really seem like handles for the alt mode. We also have red on the inside, which is really cool, and if you take a look at both of them, we do have some animation accurate details over here. Feet are simple, but on the back, these are die-cast, and I believe that is the only area of die-cast on this figure. Turning the figure over to the back, we have this barrel over here, which is removable, but the connection seems fairly solid. And I like the addition of the cute little butt cheeks. Now, from what I saw online, it seemed like some people had some issues with this figure being loose, but my copy seems fine. It seems fairly sturdy. I will say the only thing that maybe seems a little bit loose is this back joint over here for the crunch. If I do that, it'll loosen up. I haven't had any issues with the arms or the legs being loose in any way. The figure does have some decent weight to it, and the plastic quality is, it's decent, but honestly, I feel like the plastic quality should be higher because of the price point of this figure. This is an expensive figure, and I really feel it down in the legs. The legs do feel like they are just a little bit cheap, and I wish this figure felt just a little bit more premium because of that high price tag. It cost over $100. There's not many third-party figures that's within this scale range, so it's hard to compare what these third-party prices should be. But so far, this is shaping up to be a pretty solid figure. But now let's see how the scaling is. So scaling-wise, sadly, it doesn't scale well with Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime. That is because this figure was in production before we knew about that Optimus Prime, so we can't really fault anyone for it. And this is meant to scale with the Earthrise Optimus Prime, which I don't have, but I do have Siege Optimus, so here's a comparison of these two side by side, and I do think it scales pretty well. It actually does scale pretty well with some of the other Studio Series movie figures. He looks pretty good next to Bumblebee over here, and he looks pretty good next to the Studio Series Starscream. I feel like they're at a decent height next to each other. He does scale well with other Optimus Primes, like the Volvo Optimus. Okay, now that I think about it, maybe they made Studio Series Prime just too big. He's gonna be a lot shorter than your Bumblebee movie figures, which I don't know why would you want to scale them together, but there's a reference. That's a reference there for you. So one thing I really want to do is compare this figure to this War for Cybertron figure. If Studio Series 86 Megatron is just going to be a tank, wouldn't it be really funny if they just reissued this figure again? That'd be so fucking funny. I'd be so pissed off. But looking at these figures side by side, yes, they are very different. Siege is thick and a big boy. This version of Megatron has more G1 animation accurate colors. I know it's not from the G1 show, but it's very much based off it. And you can get those animation accurate colors with the Romulus figure. You just have to get the regular version. Both head sculpts I find to be pretty accurate. They're just different interpretations. One is definitely chunkier. The chest and the arms are very similar, so there's not really much for me to say there. This does not have the skirt pieces, and unfortunately no ass cheeks. I do like how we have the handle shape for the legs, despite this figure turning into a tank. Turning over to the back, obviously they're going to be very different because he has literal tank bits on him. When 86 Megatron does come out, I will compare that figure with these two, and I feel like the best way to go about that figure is to make that kind of a mix of these two figures. The figure comes with very few accessories, which is kind of a disappointment at this price range, but let's take a look at them. We get a sword, which is very reminiscent of the original G1 toy. It is fairly plain. It's just a piece of unpainted plastic. Nothing too great, honestly. We do get his mace. This is really cool. I like the translucent purple, and the way to put it on the figure is by... That's the wrong figure. Where did I put him? There he is. So the way we want to do this is we take off the hand, and then we take the handle over here, and we insert it in there. Okay. And we insert it in there. Okay. Go in there. Go in. Please. There we go. Okay. It's in. Oh yeah, it's in. And yeah, there's that. That is pretty cool. Oh, maybe the connection on this isn't as sturdy as I said it was. You can make him hold it as well, and the connection isn't the best, I guess. Let's try that sword. Okay, I got the sword on there, and yeah, it's pretty loose. Okay. It would be nice if they had a port over here so this would stay in place. And lastly, this accessory is really cool. Let's take that. Is it open that? Come on. Oh, please get out. There we go. Okay. It's so tiny. Please stay. This is a G1 toy accurate faceplate, just in case if you wanted to swap it out. I'm gonna stick with the animation accurate one. Now for the figure's articulation. The head can move up and down, 360 rotation. This has fallen off once again. Okay, that's great. The arms can move out all the way up there, 360 rotation over here. Bicep rotation, we get a very good elbow bend. Hand rotation over here. This finger has individual articulation, and then these fingers are connected and have articulation. Thumb articulation. This has popped off again. The cannon can't rotate or anything. So what's really great about this figure is that we get a really good ab crunch, and that is because this red bit over here pushes in to help with the articulation of the figure. So now we get a waist rotation. Skirt flaps can move. Oh, okay. Once again, that's fallen out. Oh, get back in there, buddy. So the leg can move forward, and the joints on mine are pretty tight. I am finding a little bit of difficulty moving the legs because this part detaches for the transformation. Also, what the fuck? We can move the leg out to the side. And once again, the joints are fairly solid on my copy of the figure. Like moving it back and forth, the joints are like really tight. But every time I do it, it does detach like that. Leg rotation, knee bend, and that is a very good knee bend. Feet can move back and forth, and this can move. Here's the alt mode. I'm skipping the transformation since it is a bit complex and I don't have time to master it before my trip, but with practice, you'll get the hang of it easily. So actually, the hands kept falling off and that was a bit frustrating, so I just took them out for the transformation. Another thing you want to take note of when transforming the figure is that for the scope, you do need to make sure that this is in the right orientation. It needs to be up over here, so you can attach that on. But overall, the alt mode on this is really good looking. There's no bump stock on this, and I don't know if they'll release that in the future. I do like how we have the chest design over here once again. We do have some ridges for the grip of the handle. I do feel like the trigger is kind of small, unfortunately. You can kind of move this down. And the colors for it in the alt mode are also really nice. The silver comes out really nice on this and definitely makes it look a bit more lifelike. I know the regular version has more gray colors. I do think the alt mode on this figure is kind of small because you can't really grip it properly. I do think making the entire figure a little bit bigger would help in the alt mode. But still, we do get a really nice looking alt mode. You can still see like some of the panel lines and stuff over here, but a lot of it is pretty seamless. this, and it comes together really well. The transformation itself is a little bit complex, but with some practice you can get used to it. So is this figure worth it? So not scaling with Studio Series 86 is kind of a downside, even though it's not supposed to. It is marketed as a Studio Series type figure, especially with that box art. Studio Series Prime coming out kind of dethroned this a bit. On top of that, the figure is pricey, but it is the most G1 accurate Megatron figure in this scale range, and it's probably going to be the most G1 accurate Megatron figure we ever get because of that alt mode. So if you want one, I'm going to link the store down below. And if you enjoyed this video, check out this other video over here, which I think you might enjoy.